So, a South African delegation is in Tanzania in a bid to bring Thabo Bester to justice, the so-called Facebook rapist and his alleged accomplices, that's Dr. Modidima Mannya and a Mozambican national, were arrested in Arusha near the border with Kenya on Friday. Bester has been on the run since his daring escape from the Mangaung maximum security prison in May last year. Let's try and find out what should happen next. Bring in legal expert now, Advocate Modidima Mannya, who joins us via our video link this morning. Great to see you as always, sir. Thanks very much indeed for your time. In your mind, how do you reckon the next steps should unfold? Because, I mean, as we stand now, there are questions around whether this is technically a deportation, an extradition, or anything of that nature. How do you see it?
No, thank you very much and good morning to your viewers. Firstly, let me commend the members of the South African Police Service. I think they did a good job. I know there's criticism against them, but they are good cops out there. Bester was in jail in the first place because of the good cops, and I think they got him again. Tanzania has got about 4 pieces of legislation which sort of interrelated and which can be used here. The first is the Immigration Act, which defines what they call a prohibited person and makes provision for the Tanzanian government to expel a person from Tanzania. So to the extent that Bester and Nandipha and the Mozambican nationals are in Tanzania illegally, they stand to be expelled in terms of the Immigration Act. Of course, the Act provides for them to be arrested, which has happened, and they must appear before a magistrate very shortly. Then you have got the Mutual Assistance Act, Legal Assistance Act, which is the law passed by Tanzania, for mutual assistance and support to the Commonwealth countries. And South Africa is one of the Commonwealth countries. So unlike the normal extradition agreement, Tanzania has got a law that makes provisions for that. In terms of that law, the people can be handed over to South Africa, but that would invoke the Deportation Act, which is another piece of legislation, which authorizes the minister to issue a deportation order against a prohibited person. But there's also the Criminal Law Act, which regulates the prosecution of people who commit offenses in Tanzania. So it is possibly what will happen is that these people will appear in court, and the court will have to confirm their prohibited status, and then it's likely that the minister will then issue an order, a deportation order. They will be brought back to South Africa. I don't think the law provides for the South African police services to go and arrest people there. The people can only be arrested by the Tanzanian authorities. And then if they are deported, they will be deported to their country of origin. I suppose the Mozambican nationals referred to will be deported to Mozambique.
Which complicates their ability, this Mozambican national, to kind of face the music, so to speak, in this country, doesn't it?
Well, look, we just hear that he was assisting them, but from where he started assisting them, we don't know. He might have started assisting them outside of the Republic of South Africa, in which case he would not be eligible to be prosecuted for any crime in South Africa. So it's probably until we know whether he was involved here. But remember, he's not a South African national. He's a Mozambican national. Deportation takes you back to your country of origin.
If the opinion is that South African police can't really do much until Tanzanian processes have unfolded, what's the value of sending this police delegation to Tanzania to begin with?
Well, it is helpful. As I say, Tanzania has got a law that regulates mutual legal assistance. So obviously there must be an exchange of information. Part of what the law deals with is the exchange and collection of information. So it's important that there is a delegation from South Africa to Tanzania to provide the Tanzanian authorities with all the relevant information. For instance, in the case of Bester, the law provides for the fact that he has been convicted of an offense of murder and sentenced. So they must provide all the records to the Tanzanian government. Remember, one of the things that usually is implicated in deportations and expulsions of people is that many countries do not expel people who are fugitives from political persecution. So it's important to clarify the actual reason for the person being a fugitive from his country. So the presence of the South African delegation is helpful in terms of providing and sharing information with the Tanzanian authorities to inform the decisions that the Tanzanian authorities will take.
Does it matter ultimately what, for instance, Thabo Bester specifically is charged for when he is in this country? Because if the version of events we've gotten wind of are true in the ways through which they've been explained, obviously the police are spoiled for choice about which charge to actually put forward before him. But as far as you're concerned, is there a way of ensuring that this is as watertight as can possibly be? And is that linked to what charge ultimately they bring before him?
Yes, remember, Bester faces two complexities or troubles. Firstly, he's already convicted of murder and other crimes and already sentenced to life and 75 years in prison. He has escaped from lawful custody. So the first issue, which is watertight, is that once he returns here, there is already a court order confining him to prison. So it is simply an administrative process of returning him to prison. He doesn't have to go through any other process except to be taken to where he belongs. The second one is that he naturally will face a charge of escape from lawful custody, which is clearly he has escaped from what it seems. So that would have a prosecution. It's probably add an extra 5 years to his already life and 75 years. So with regard to Bester, in terms of those two, there's nothing more to add except to take him where he belongs. The other offenses that he may have committed, including those that he committed with the lady Nandipa and whoever else, will still require a prosecution. So, but with him, whether he can be found guilty of those is immaterial. I mean, he's already got a life sentence. So just a question of putting him back in prison. I think the focus would most likely be on Nandipa and whoever else is involved, because as you can see from media reports, it does seem like there's been quite a lot of criminal activity that has been taking place, including her escape from South Africa, how she crossed the border. You had a press conference by the ministers saying that they had multiple passports which have not been stamped. That may mean she left the country other than through a port of entry, which is illegal. It may as well be that there's fraud involved because these passports seem to be in different names and all those kind of things. But the bottom line is that they will be brought back here and the police will continue with their investigations and charge them. I saw an article in the paper this morning that her father has also been arrested. I don't know how true that is. And that actually can just indicate to you that there's probably more that is coming and that the police still have a long way to go before they probably secure a conviction on whatever offenses they will bring.
Yeah.
Remember, the case of the escape of Bester also involves the murder of the person, because the presentation was that it is Bester who died and burned. Now it turns out that there was a person who, through blunt force to the head, died. That constitutes murder. And Nandi is the one who claimed the body, and I think that there are a host of people in that prison, Mangaung prison and Swali, GS4, who still have to be, answered to various questions. So we're probably going a long way, and I think I'm impressed with the fact that the police, despite the escape, have not been discouraged and they're working hard. I commend them.
All right. Given what you've just said, I wonder whether there's any telling how wide authorities should actually cast their net here, because it does seem, and I guess this is all speculation given how little we know, it does seem that there is an intricate web, possibly, that even extends beyond South Africa's borders, because not only is there a Mozambican national involved, but we were told about cars that have been abandoned with at the border with Zimbabwe, for example.
Yes, look, I think what we probably suffer from a trust deficit with the government and the police, and often we might miss the fact that the police should not be telling us every detail of an investigation. But from what it seems, and I've just been following based on what you guys report, the media report, and which is very good and commendable, that there seems to be an elaborate, very broad investigation into this matter. I've seen PS4 throwing tantrums saying we have not been called to Parliament. Yesterday I saw that the media has reported that there was an email relating to a letter written by two inmates about this escape. And I think all these things are coming out, firstly, because of the good work that the media is doing. Remember, this matter gained prominence as a result of media exposure. And that confirms the importance of the media freedom provisions of our constitution. But based on that, it has prompted the government to act, and there's action that is taking place. As I say, we've now heard about 3 corpses that were removed from a morgue in Bloemfontein around the Free State. So it seems like more information is emerging, and I think police are really doing their best in the circumstances. I'm very optimistic that this is a bigger web, but I think that I'm convinced that it's going to be cracked. We must not be deluded into believing that there was an accident, that they were arrested in Tanzania. There was no accident. This seems to have been a heavily intelligence-driven operation by the South African police services. So we must not be deluded that police are not doing anything on this matter, especially with the prominence that it has attracted. And I can tell you now that, and I had in the background whilst I was waiting, that we were talking about the Western matter. This case is going to open up a can of worms. It's going to, police often set a standard, and they are going to be held to these standards that they are setting. And I can tell you, this is telling us there's more in this country that we probably need to follow up.
Advocate Modidima Mannya, thanks for giving us your take. It's certainly, no matter how you see it, the story is certainly far from over. We appreciate you giving us your take as we make sense of what we know so far. Advocate Modidima Mannya, once again, thanks very much indeed.